What's up and welcome to Q&A, the show where I take your questions from YouTube and answer them here in video format. And as always, if you want to make sure you can be first in line to ask some of these questions, make sure you're subscribed, make sure you're notified so you don't miss a single thing. And also so you can catch the community tab posts I put up that access for these questions for both pre and post game. So make sure you're subscribed and notified so you don't miss that. But without further ado, we're going to jump into your questions this week because it's an interesting matchup. We all have a ton of questions. This one from Elijah Cable, who says, why is Higgins being forgot? Hodge was put on IR and we promote Taylor. What's going on? Interesting question here. This is something we saw with Rashard Higgins in camp where other guys would beat him out. You would see more of Donovan Peoples-Jones and Kadarius Hodge and not a lot of Rashard Higgins. I'm starting to wonder if that has to do with his blocking ability. As we've seen, we need wide receivers who can block. Is Rashard Higgins not a willing blocker? Is that getting in his way of being able to see the field? Maybe so. He was also very inconsistent from a production standpoint during camp where he wasn't able to get a lot of completions thrown his way. So maybe that has something to do with it. Probably a combination of both, but maybe Rashard Higgins not the best blocker in the world. And when you have a third wide receiver for the Browns who's not going to be getting the ball a lot, going to be blocking more often than he's going to be receiving, that's something they prioritize, and Rashard has not made the necessary commitments to that. I'm speculating. I don't know if that's the case. That's just one scenario that could make some sense. The next question comes from Colin Tackett, who says, hey, Quincy, if the Browns beat the Colts, there should be no question if the Browns are for real contenders, right? By the way, man, I love your videos. Keep it up. Yeah, right. It depends on what your definition is of a contender. That would depend on how the Browns win that game. I think if they come out there and they throw all over this like really good Indy passing attack and Baker Mayfield takes like a step in his development this week, yeah, it's time to get excited because that means that this offense is not going to be so one-dimensional and it's going to be deep enough and versatile enough to really, really do some damage against some good teams. But yeah, if the Browns come out and they win this game, they are definitely in the conversation for playoff contender. I think they have been in that conversation for a couple of weeks now. I think it's kind of been obvious this team looks like a playoff team, or at least has been playing on that level. So yeah, if they win this game, it should be undeniable. I know Stephen A thinks it's funny that the Browns are being considered for the playoffs, which is like odd. They're 3-1. I don't know why it's funny. They haven't beaten like the worst teams in the NFL. Granted, they haven't beaten the best teams either. But yeah, they should be in playoff contention. And if they get a win there, they make that case even stronger against Indy, who's one of the best defenses in the NFL, and I don't think anybody can deny that. I don't care who they played. The level and the numbers they've put out, that's top-tier defense numbers right there. The next question comes from Jesse Ingria, who says, hey, Quincy, I've got to ask, Andrew Sendejo being the usual suspect week by week, what are your thoughts of replacing him with Eric Reid? I know he's not the answer, but will he be an upgrade over Sendejo? Here's the problem with the secondary, in my opinion. I'm just a dude answering questions on YouTube, so take it with whatever grain of salt you want to take it with. But Andrew Sendejo's issues is that the Browns are asking him sometimes to cover too much ground, and he's too slow. Eric Reid is not going to solve that. Eric Reid is not much faster than Sendejo. They're both veterans. You know, I just don't think adding a veteran in here who's not faster, who's not exponentially better than Sendejo, just so they can learn this defense more and more and be more and more behind with the communication, is going to fix anything at this point. It's up to Sendejo and the Browns to be able to put him in the right position so he doesn't have to cover so much ground. I think the easier fix is to add more depth to the defensive line so you don't have to blitz as often, which leaves your safeties more vulnerable. There are other fixes here than just simply replacing the free safety. And I think replacing the free safety, unless you can get your hands on a Minkah Fitzpatrick level player, is not going to be a great solution. If you're filling that void with Eric Reid, who's essentially the same thing Andrew Sendejo is at this point, or the same thing Ronnie Harrison is, which is another slow safety, which you don't need, then I don't know what you're going to fix there. But, you know, unless you can get your hands on a top tier level safety, which I don't see being available and definitely not available for a price the Browns should be willing to pay, then, you know, I think it is what it is, and you have to figure out other fixes around the entire defense to kind of make sure your safeties aren't as vulnerable as they were against Dallas. I think that's the route that they need to go by. And I know the personnel fix seems like the easy one, but they're just going to have to adjust in the scheme. The next question comes from Casey Kinnaman, who says, hey, Quincy, with the return of David Njoku, do you anticipate any 13 personnel with Austin Hooper, Bryant on the line, and Njoku in the slot? Seems like an easy way to create mismatches in the red zone. I don't think that will happen this week, even though it could, because the Colts have some good depth at linebacker, but not necessarily in coverage, and maybe you can get Oriki out there with David Njoku, and you like that matchup better than going against their corners. So you might see it this week. You'll definitely see 13 personnel against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh hasn't done a great job against tight ends all season. That's been their weakness. Expect the Browns to throw 4 or 5 tight ends out there at a time. They will have all the tight ends in the world to throw at Pittsburgh. So I don't know if you're going to see it this week. It's definitely possible. It's just with David Njoku coming back after not playing, I don't know how comfortable they feel with that. But next week against Pittsburgh, yeah, it's probably going to be in the cards. The next question comes from Nate JJ, who says, do you think we'll run the ball as much as we did in previous weeks without Chubb? If last week is any indication, yeah, because they gave Dontrell Hilliard about 6-7 carries. They gave ERNEST about 13-14 carries, and then Kareem Hunt about 13-14 carries. So you had a large amount of carries spread around a large amount of running backs. So I'd expect it. I think Dearness Johnson, if you're going to give Kareem Hunt 20 carries, Dearness can definitely hang with that 10, and you can give 2 or 3 here and there to Dontrell if you need to. But yeah, I think the carries will stay up. Dearness Johnson, when he was out there, he didn't just look like good enough to be out there as like a second or third running back, like a feel-good story. He looked legitimately good at some points in that game. So I think the Browns are interested to see what they could do. They could let him loose, see if they got something in him. And then what you got in Kareem Hunt, which is somebody who used to lead the league in rushing yards. And honestly, if that was your 1-2 punch to start the season, like if you never had Nick Chubb, that would be a very solid 1-2 punch. The fact that you have Nick Chubb waiting, again, speaks to the depth that they have in that running back room. Next question comes from C. Zachary Chad, who says, do we see more of Dearness or Dontrell Hilliard behind Kareem Hunt? I'd prefer Dearness as he's a more versatile back. Yeah, especially since Kareem Hunt is going to be receiving a lot. He's also going to take a lot of carries as the main running back now. I think you'll see Dearness in there. It depends on how well Dearness can block. He blocked well last week. I don't know how well he blocks as a NFL player in total because he just hasn't had a ton of snaps. I know Dontrell can block as well, so you might see him on some third down packages. But yeah, I'd expect to see Dearness. Dearness beat out Dontrell Hilliard for his roster spot, so it would make sense for him to get more carries than Dontrell. Next question comes from James Wilson, who says, how well do you think the Browns' run game, especially with Nick Chubb out and Johnson getting more carries, matches up with Indy's defensive line and linebackers? I think this could be where the game is won. Well, I agree with you there. I think that is definitely the matchup that's going to either win or lose this game for both teams. Whoever wins that battle in the trenches when the Browns have the ball. And honestly, that battle has a lot less to do with the running backs, quite frankly, and a lot more to do with the offensive line versus the defensive line. Joe Bitonio had a little bit of an off day last week against Dallas. Hopefully he's more healthy, plays a lot better. We're going to need him to because Solomon Thomas might be the best interior defensive lineman in football, so you're going to need to throw a lot at him. And the less you can throw at him, if Joe Bitonio can be good old Joe Bitonio and handle DeForest Buckner one-on-one, that's going to be very good for the Browns. That will do a lot for this team. If he can't, then you start to let the linebackers start to be more of a factor in this game. Are they going to be able to run free, fill some of these gaps? They're a very disciplined unit. The play action might not be there against this disciplined unit. So it's going to be very interesting to watch. But that line of scrimmage battle when the Browns have the ball is absolutely where this game will be won or lost. The next question comes from Dan1031, who says, can Baker Mayfield and his pass game develop into a great passing game during the season? Yes, it absolutely can. Minnesota's developed great late in the season last year when they had Kevin Stefanski. It can do the same thing with Baker Mayfield, and that's why you have to let Baker Mayfield do what he can early in the season while he's still learning the system, while he's still getting reps, and hope that within the last 8 weeks of the season, it clicks, he gets enough snaps, and he starts to understand these things and make more plays. That's the gamble with Baker Mayfield. That's why I'm so absolutely against any notion of Case Keenum getting in there, because right now Baker Mayfield, he's not lost you the game. He's won you. He's made a couple big plays so far through the air. So it's trending in that direction. And if you can get Baker Mayfield to be a game changer at the position, and also simultaneously, because of how good your run game is, to be the quote-unquote weak link of your offense, you're in a tremendous position. Because if Baker Mayfield can play at the level that he did his rookie year with the pieces that he has on his offense and with the run game, that is going to be very, very hard for even a very, very good defense to stop, let alone any defense that has like a legitimate hole in it. So that's going to be a massive problem. If the Browns can get that versatile and that good on both facets of the game, oh my God, it's going to be unstoppable. Next question comes from Jeremy Allison, who says, do you think the Browns could come off flat this week after a high-profile win last week? This would be the classic Browns thing to do. The one thing I'll say is they won that Thursday night game. They had the long week, and they came back and they played well against Washington, won that game by double digits. And then they won that game, went into Dallas, won it by double digits. So it doesn't seem like this team has that up and down consistency issue or that inability to handle wins that previous regimes have had. And I think that reflects on Kevin Stefanski's attitude. He is huge on the one game at a time thing. It's not some platitude to him. It's clearly a lifestyle to him, and it looks like it's reflecting off everybody. If you look at how Baker Mayfield has turned down the energy after wins in these press conferences, and how the team has just carried themselves this season. So I have more faith in this Browns team that they will be able to collect themselves and play well against Indy. But it's going to be an interesting battle. This is not going to be a rollover team. This is not going to be some team that you should just beat in Indy. So I'm interested to see how they come out. Next question comes from Funk the Junk, who says, hey, Quincy, with Kareem basically being the front runner for the running back room for a few weeks, from what you've seen out of D'Ernest Johnson, how confident are you in his ability to complement Kareem and be his Batman? I like him as a kind of compliment to Kareem Hunt, because Kareem Hunt is explosive. He has some decent long speed, but he's also just really hard to tackle. Him and Nick Chubb are a lot more similar than people give credit to. Nick Chubb is a little bit more quick and strong than Kareem Hunt, and Kareem Hunt's a little bit more explosive and faster long speed wise than Nick Chubb, but they're very similar backs, very hard to tackle, and I think that's why when you get into fourth quarters, these guys kind of wear some teams down. D'Ernest Johnson is a little bit different. He's very quick and explosive as well, but he's not going to necessarily be this hard guy to tackle. He's not the heaviest dude out there. He's somebody who I think you could throw a couple screens to. He might be able to break a couple for some nice gains here. I think he's a little bit quicker than Kareem Hunt. It looks like he makes some very quick cuts. I think he'll be serviceable in that role, and I think he'll be a nice change of pace guy. Next question comes from Giants Nation, who says, what's up, Quincy? I love your Baker Mayfield video telling everybody to chill, let him develop. My question is, would you be mad at the Browns organization and fans if they let Baker Mayfield walk to a different team and have success like Drew Brees? And have you ever came close to rooting for the Browns? You every time the Browns make me mad, I come close to not rooting for the Browns, but then I come back. So I guess. But to answer the other part, it depends on the circumstances, right? Because if Baker Mayfield comes out here and throws 25 interceptions and 17 touchdowns and gets ran out of town and it looks really bad, I'm not going to be for it. I'm not going to encourage it, but I understand it if it happens, because that's just unfortunate, right? I would make the argument that Ben threw 17 touchdowns, 23 interceptions in his third year, and look what he blossomed into. But I understand nobody's going to want to hear that if Baker Mayfield completely tanks this season. So I get that under that circumstance. But if it's like Baker Mayfield's just putting up solid numbers and people are getting impatient in the front office and, just deciding, well, maybe we could do better, and they do the whole Phillip Rivers situation where they just give up on Drew Brees, even though he's trending in the right direction, that would make me mad. That would absolutely tick me off. I would make 20 rant videos, because that would upset me, especially if Baker Mayfield developed into like an MVP type, Hall of Fame type player. Yeah, that would enrage me, and I would also be enraged at Browns fans who were for that move happening, acting as if they were enraged too, like they didn't encourage this whole situation to happen. So yeah, it would be hair pull out frustrating. But that's it for this week's questions. Again, guys, thank you for asking these questions, and thank you for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.